One of the things about us three guys is we came together through the Lemons format, which is thoroughly entertaining. Now, this is what was explained to me to start off with, so I'll stick with it. Cars had to cost $1,000 or less at some stage, but there's safety cages, all the stuff you need to go motor racing, and you invite as many people as you can to come in and drive the car. And the idea was to keep a shit box going for as long as you can on an endurance race. That's how I understand it. Mike, Nathan, that's how it was?
Yeah,
or still is?
I think, because I know in America they're real strict with I think it's $500 over there. They're real strict with that cost.
Yeah, but
cap.
that is $1,000 in New Zealand, just about, isn't it?
But like, have you seen some of the teams? They keep receipts of everything.
I
They
know.
have all the proof that they haven't spent, because you're allowed to sell stuff.
Yep.
I think you're allowed to sell like the stereo and the road seats and stuff,
And make money back on
and it credits it, right?
Yep.
So, but here in New Zealand, I think it's just more of a common sense thing. Like if you show up in an Integra with maybe some coilovers and some grippy rubber,
Yep.
that's cool. But if you show up in a GT4 Porsche,
Yeah.
you're probably going to get...
You never paid $1,000 for that, mate.
No.
So that's kind of how it works. But the way I was introduced to this was through Mike Howe, and he said, well, you're a judge. And basically that's where we get to penalise people.
I think penalising is the real best part about it all, because that's evolved too. It started off with we'd go and do what was called a BS session. You'd come and tell us your car was... We used to actually in the early days tell you that our car was stock standard, which mostly it is, quite truthfully. I remember taking some skin off one of my fingers, actually wiping a cobweb away, and you going, oh, that's quite good. I'll give you some points or some laps for the flesh. And you do the BS. Well, we don't really focus on the BS session anymore, which is a real shame because the bribes were quite good, and as with everything, it moves on.
But having said that, we do ask that if you are going to enter into the spirit of lemons and your car turns up for scrutineering, if you've got a whole bunch of bribes in there to help you as the race continues, then we won't say no.
No, it certainly helps them. There's no doubt about that. We've got, and now as a judge, as well as part of Hooncorp and that, when they run, they're not there on my favourite list. I have to, you and I, and sometimes Magdalena, that we all penalise as much as we can, and we pick on them, and it doesn't matter who's in charge, and they're ripe for picking. But if you turn up at scrutineering and you've got some food or some medicine, or they've got gift vouchers, or there's something for the charity or whatever they want to sort of think is right and proper, yeah, we'll definitely give them some laps, because it's a stroke of a pen has just made you 5 or 10 laps around the track, which
better off.
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
And that's the other thing. It's we've always been a great supporter of charities. Alec Men's Health is the charity we support at the moment, and because when it comes to it, we're all blokes, and you know what blokes are like, big tough buggers, and mate, I don't let anything get me down.
I suppose. Well, as always, you two have gone off on a tangent. We need to sort of bring this one back to step one.
Oh.
If there's anyone listening here
Nicely
who's
done.
never done lemons, and
Yeah.
they're listening to us and they're going, I've seen those cars, those aren't $1,000 shitters. And,
Yeah.
and the gentrification of lemons has been a pretty... people complain in the comments. I see it on
Yeah.
the posts. They
Yeah.
see a picture of a Celica. That's not $1,000. They see a picture of a nice Bummer. That's not $1,000. If there's anyone listening here who's never done lemons before and they don't have a car, they don't have a team, what do they need to do? What do they need to prepare to come to an event?
Yeah, well, they need to actually get off the couch, and they need to find some friends, and someone has to own the car. That's the first thing I'd say. I wouldn't say go and do it as a group of 4 or 5 people, because it seldom works. And the reason for that is if one person changes, or the situation changes, or they die, then it becomes a complete ruination of the team. Someone owns the car. They all chip in. They have a fair price to do this. Here's a fair price to do that. Build the car. Like you said before, a cage. It depends where you go for a cage. You're spending $1,200 to $3,000 or more. Some guys will charge a lot more. The cage doesn't have to be homologated. And if you build a cage properly and you get photos of it as it's being built, you can actually homologate in the future if you choose to go Motorsport New Zealand route. And that's fine. But the Lemons runs under AASA. That's why you don't need homologation. However, at every race meet, the car is scrutineered and inspected, and the cage is very thoroughly scrutineered and checked. And these are guys that know how to weld, so they can look at it. In fact, in the past, and this is no slight of the homologation system, but the true story is in the past they've actually sent cars away to go and get bars welded that have been homologated. And that's probably a maintenance issue from the owner or who knows what.
Yeah.
So that's the good thing about it. And like you said, Nath, get that car, get that team, get those people, doing it. And whether it's $1,000 or a $1,500 car or $2,000 car, if you're going to turn up in something that's fit for purpose, if you're going to go and put $5,000 worth of shock suspension and brakes, big drill this with Woolwoods, and you and I are going to have a field day, Nick. We're going to absolutely embarrass them. But if they turn up in a stock, so we turned up in a last year we built a car in 2 weeks. It was a bog standard Nissan Lucino for a rookies class car. And the car had been sitting for 8 or 9 years outside. It did run, it did drive, but it was in pretty poor mechanical condition. We gave it a basic birthday, put a cage in it, and got the seats and everything, did it right. It was a good, strong, solid car. How long did it last, Nath?
Oh, mate, I think we got probably 3 laps into practice.
Yeah, we got, actually it was 8 laps just because after 4 laps it started leaking. You're right, it started showing a leak after another 4 laps of the second driver. Yes, didn't go well. So the key thing there is obviously cars that have been sitting a long, long time may well work, but make sure and at the time it had no leaks, and of course it just goes.
It was such a promising package.
Not trying to get off subject on that, the point is you can take a stock standard car, which it was, we put good pads in it, nothing flash, and we had spare pads. We didn't even go race pads in that, I don't believe. And so, all of that sort of carry on there just to get a car on the track. It's a can-do attitude to get them on the track. And you and I, Nick, we can penalise till the cows come home if you turn up. We've got that red Skyline. Let's call that car out. There's no way that's a $1,000 car.
No.
We penalise them like it's just about every 5 minutes they come into not quite. They come into the pits. And what do they come in with? Are they all grumpy and gloomy?
No. The thing I love about that is we penalise it, then we send it back out on the track, and then we penalise it for doing a lap. So that's the kind of thing that goes into it. My favourite car ever was the second ever Lemons that I was at, was a 1993 Honda Accord that a guy had parked under his tree for like about 5 years. So it technically didn't cost him anything. But they gave it a birthday, made sure it ran, that sort of thing, put the roll cage in it, got it on the track. It used tyres and fuel and brake pads, and it just kept circulating. Didn't win. I think it was because it didn't do a hell of a lot of laps, but it just kept going. And that was the biggest, the grin on these guys' faces was unbelievable. Mate, we finished an endurance race. Incredible. Yeah, but you didn't win. It doesn't matter,
And that's what's easily sort of overlooked when deciding on what you're going to use in a Lemons race, right?
Yep.
Everyone thinks about fast cars and it's got to be fast. It's got to, we want to win, but it actually needs to be reliable, and the parts need to be readily available. I've and I'm sure you guys have seen it too. Teams that come with a car that maybe the parts are readily available, but they've done this or they've done that. Or there was one team one year that had done, what was it? Was it suspension or something? And it was all super duper bespoke carbon fiber, this, that, and the other, which, they got penalised. They ended up breaking it, and they had to take the part off, go from Hampton Downs all the way to wherever it was, Albany or something, get the replacement, come all the way back. This is while the race is going on, right?
Yeah.
So they're losing laps, and, if they just kept the stock parts in and maybe had, and the other thing too, spare parts. We harp on about it at Hooncorp. When we're doing our, when we're fielding our cars, we talk about the need to have spares and to have spares. We take entire spare cars. If someone goes up the back of someone and it's raining, or you need to have headlights, we've got headlights there. We've got wiper blades. We've
Radiator.
got all the sort of stuff that you look at it and go, it's pretty superficial. We won't need spares until you do.
Yeah. And then sometimes there's someone else in the pits. This is one of the big things about Lemons that I really love. If one of the cars has an incident, an off, or something like that, and it, as we've seen a lot of Toyota Celicas, spare parts sometimes become an issue. But there's a lot of teams that will come to your aid and will help you out, and you'll be able to carry on racing because, like it or not, you're racing against these other teams, but they want to race against you.
Yeah, we had the Batman Holden HQ a few years ago. And in fact, Dino was a good friend of mine, and they turned up with this car, and unfortunately they got into the first, so too, there was a non-stop. They'd gone into the first day without a problem, and that afternoon, that night time, they come up to us and they said, it would come out as a thing about they'd had a problem. I said, what's going on? He goes, the motor's lunched itself, and it's a 308. And I said,
that's right.
Yeah, and I said, what's going on there? No, we're going to pack it up and put it on the trailer. I said, well, do you want a 308? I said, I've got one sitting in the shed. He goes, nah. I said, I've got one sitting in the shed. So we worked out a time, went down there, went into the shed, pulled it out. There it was. I said, oh, my one's got the such and such pattern for the such and such gearbox. And he goes, yeah, that's the one we're after. I said, well, there you go. Put it on the back of the thing. We worked out a bit of a smile and a handshake and a couple of boxes of Woodies or whatever, and put it back. They spent all the second day fitting this jolly engine, and they're doing this and doing that. They got the thing going for another last couple of hours or something, and thought they'd won Formula One because it was so. They had no expectations that they were going to get back onto the track, and the car finished. And HQs are not worth $1,000, but they were there and they got the car going again. They got back on the track and had a ball.
To be fair, they'd had the HQ for a number of years.
He had actually, yeah.
So it was one of those ones that, let's see if this one can run. But that's just the spirit of Lemons, and that's what we really enjoy. And sometimes it leads on to bigger and better things. Some people take it up to the next level and go for limes, or you want to get into the Pro Series. That's fine, but a great place to start and a great place to introduce a whole bunch of people who would ordinarily not give a second thought about motorsport into the world of motorsport and to really enjoy it. Plus, we get to penalise here.
And there are plenty of teams that are totally content with just having fun in the Lemons. They don't care about competition. They don't care about going up the motorsports ladder or anything. That's just their thing. Their work colleagues or their family or their whatever, and that's their bonding time, is prepping the cars, running the cars, being a part of the scenery. Because Lemons, as much as it's obviously is racing and time on the track, there is also an atmosphere about it that you just don't see with other motorsports.
And there's also the track time. You've got to remember too, a lot of these younger drivers, they want to get lots of seat time, they want to learn how to drive, and they want to learn in different conditions, nighttime, daytime, dry, wet, things like that. So that's where it's invaluable, the amount of seat time you can get. You can go out and pay for a test day and pay a lot of money for a test day, a one-day wonder. You can be out there doing 1 or 2 hour sessions. And for those up-and-coming endurance races or those that want to move into different types of tier of motorsport, this is a great learner for them as well, young and not so young, or the ones that have done it, sat out a few years or decade or so, and then want to get back into it. And surprisingly, it's amazing how the ice just goes into the water, and all of a sudden we're starting to see people now and move up the lines of motorsport, and they've actually done their grassroots learning with us. So it's quite a pleasurable thing.
Everyone's got to start somewhere. Lemons is a great place to start. Plus, we get to penalise you.